While others were learning in school, he was mastering numbers in the market, among crates of fruit and old scales. But when a teacher noticed his talent, he was taken on a challenge that could change his life and prove that intelligence isn't measured by where you're born. Since he was 6 years old, Ethan Martinez would wake up before dawn to help his parents, Mrs. Lucy and Mr. Henry, at their fruit and vegetable stand in the bustling San Juan market, one of the busiest in Mexico City. While the other kids in the Coyoacan neighborhood were still asleep, Ethan was already sorting avocados, arranging different varieties of chili peppers, and stacking corn cobs in perfect symmetry. "Ethan, help me with this calculation," his mother would say as she attended to Mrs. Martinez, a regular customer who always bought groceries for the entire week. Without even using a pencil and paper, the 10-year-old would add up the kilos of tomatoes, onions, and avocados and calculate the exact change in seconds. "That'll be 228 pesos and 50 cents, Mom. If Mrs. Martinez pays with 300, we should give her 71 pesos and 50 cents in change," he would reply with a precision that left customers in awe. Mrs. Lucy would smile proudly as Mrs. Martinez remarked, "This boy is a human calculator. They should put him in a numbers-related field." At the market, Ethan was known as the Math Kid, a nickname he wore with pride. He noticed patterns in everything, how sales would spike just before certain holidays, which products sold best, depending on the season, and how to negotiate with suppliers to maximize profits. Without realizing it, by the age of 12, he had developed a natural instinct for business. "Dad, if we buy lemons in bulk this week, we could save almost 500 pesos, he suggested while helping his father take inventory. Mr. Henry, though initially skeptical, had learned to trust his son's calculations after repeatedly verifying their accuracy. But Ethan's life had two contrasting sides. While he was respected and valued at the market, at technical middle school de 43, Plutarco Elias Calles, the reality was completely different. "Here comes the fruit vendor's kid," shouted Gavin Montgomery, the son of a local businessman and the most popular boy in school. "How many onions did you sell today, Ethan? Or were you too busy counting carrots?" Laughter echoed through the hallway as Ethan tried to maintain his dignity, clutching his books to his chest like a shield. It had always been this way. From the first day when he arrived with hands roughened by work and a faint scent of fresh herbs, he became the perfect target for ridicule. "Ignore them," advised his only friend Marisol Dominguez, the daughter of fishermen, who understood perfectly what it meant to be judged by her parents' occupation. "They don't know what real work is." During class, Ethan remained quiet, avoiding attention. However, in math class, something inside him changed. Numbers spoke a language he understood better than Spanish itself. Yet, he preferred to keep a low profile to avoid further teasing. "Mr. Martinez, could you come to the board and solve this problem?" asked Mr. William Scott one day, presenting an equation that had left the entire class stumped. Ethan felt a knot in his stomach as he walked to the front, aware of the mocking glances from his classmates. He picked up the chalk with a trembling hand, looked at the quadratic equation, and to everyone's surprise, including his own, began solving it with astonishing fluency, explaining each step as if reciting a well-rehearsed poem. Silence filled the room when he finished. Not even Gavin had a sarcastic comment. Mr. Scott adjusted his glasses and examined the solution carefully. "Perfect, Mr. Martinez. Absolutely perfect. Where did you learn to solve quadratic equations so effortlessly?" Ethan shrugged, uncomfortable with the sudden attention. "At the market, we calculate percentages, profits and losses all the time, sir. I guess I'm just good with numbers." Marisol, sitting in the front row, smiled broadly and began to clap. Gradually, other students joined in, creating a wave of recognition Ethan had never experienced in that classroom. That afternoon, as he organized boxes of mangoes at the family stand, Ethan reflected on what had happened. For the first time, his classmates had seen beyond the fruit vendor's kid. Perhaps there was a world where his knack for numbers meant more than calculating the correct change or negotiating prices with suppliers. "You seem deep in thought," commented Mr. Henry, placing a hand on his son's shoulder. "Trouble at school?" Ethan shook his head. "On the contrary, Dad. Today I solved a tough problem in front of everyone. The teacher said I have a talent for math. And that surprises you, Mr. Henry chuckled. Since you were 5, you've been our accountant, our manager, and our negotiator. Your mother and I have always known you're special, son. As the afternoon faded over the market and vendors began closing their stalls, an idea began to form. In Ethan's mind, perhaps there was a way to unite his two worlds. The market he loved so much, and the math that came so naturally to him. Maybe, just maybe, he could prove that being the fruit vendor's kid wasn't a limitation, but the beginning of something extraordinary. Mr. William Scott wasn't easily impressed. After 20 years of teaching math at various schools in Mexico City, he thought he had seen it all. However, something about Ethan Martinez had caught his attention. It wasn't just his ability to solve complex problems, but the natural intuition with which he approached concepts that hadn't even been taught in class. A week after the quadratic equation incident, Mr. Scott decided to test Ethan's skills with a greater challenge. "Class," he announced as he entered the room, "today I have a special challenge. The National Autonomous University of Mexico is organizing a math competition for middle school students, and our school has been invited to participate." A murmur of disinterest spread through the room. Math Olympiads had never been popular. At Technical Middle School number 43, where most students had more practical aspirations or simply didn't see the point in competing in something so nerdy. The winning team will receive a full scholarship to study in UNAM's elite program as well as an internship at Azteca Bank, Mr. Scott continued. At the mention of the internship, several heads perked up with sudden interest. An internship at a major financial institution could open doors many considered unreachable. "We need 3 students to form our team. I was thinking of Mr. Montgomery, Miss Dominguez, and Mr. Martinez." Gavin Montgomery let out a mocking laugh. "The fruit vendor? Are you kidding, sir? I get that I'd be on the team, but him." Ethan clenched his fists under the desk. It wasn't the first time Gavin had humiliated him publicly, but each insult still hurt like the first. "Mr. Montgomery," Mr. Scott's voice turned stern, "I suggest you pay more attention in class. Mr. Martinez has shown exceptional talent in math, something you, with all your advantages, have yet to demonstrate." The room fell silent. No one had ever put Gavin in his place like that. "If I may," Marisol interjected, timidly raising her hand, "I think Ethan would be perfect for the team. We all know he's the best at math." Several heads nodded in agreement, surprising Ethan. Since when did his classmates recognize his talent? After class, as Ethan packed his books, Mr. Scott approached him. "Martinez, I've been watching you. I don't know where you learned to think the way you do, but you have a gift. And it would be a waste not to nurture it." Ethan looked down, uncomfortable with the praise. "It's no big deal, sir, just tricks I picked up at the market." Do you know how many market tricks could revolutionize the financial world? Math isn't just what we teach in class. It's about seeing patterns where others don't, anticipating outcomes, understanding probabilities intuitively. Mr. Scott paused. "Exactly what you do when you help your parents." For the first time, Ethan considered that perhaps his experience at the market wasn't something to be ashamed of, but an advantage others didn't have. The next day, during recess, Gavin and his friends cornered Ethan near the basketball court. "So, now you're Mr. Scott's pet," Gavin mocked. "Don't get any ideas, fruit vendor. When we get to the competition, it'll be clear who belongs there and who should stay counting oranges." "Leave him alone, Gavin," Marisol stepped between them, with a bravery that surprised even herself. "Why don't you solve a problem without your private tutor's help? Oh, right, you can't." Gavin's face turned red with anger. "You two are two of a kind. The fisherman's daughter defending the fruit vendor's son. Pathetic." "At least, we know what hard work is," Ethan retorted, finding his voice. "What do you know about that?" Gavin took a threatening step forward, but stopped when he saw Mr. Scott approaching. "I have an idea," Mr. Scott said, apparently having overheard part of the conversation. "Since there's so much competitive energy, let's have a little demonstration before the official competition." And so 3 days later, The entire school gathered in the auditorium to witness an unusual math duel. On one side of the stage stood Gavin Montgomery, with his impeccable uniform and confident demeanor. On the other side stood Ethan Martinez, visibly nervous but determined. Mr. Scott projected a complex optimization problem, the kind typically seen in advanced high school or even early college courses. "You have 10 minutes, he announced. Gavin looked at the problem with growing panic, while Ethan studied it with an expression that gradually transformed. To him, it wasn't just an abstract equation. It was like calculating the best product distribution at the stand to maximize sales, or determining how much to invest in each type of fruit, depending on the season for the highest return. 5 minutes later, Ethan raised his hand. "I'm done, sir." A murmur of amazement swept through the auditorium. Gavin had barely managed to set up the problem. Mr. Scott reviewed Ethan's solution, nodding with increasing admiration. "Perfect, and you even found a more efficient alternative solution than the one I had in mind." Someone in the audience began to clap, and soon the entire auditorium erupted in cheers. Principal Carmela Ortiz, who had been watching from the back, approached the stage with an impressed smile. "Young Martinez, that was extraordinary," she said, extending her hand. "I think we have a strong contender to represent our school." Suddenly, a flash caught everyone's attention. Robert Mendez, the student in charge of the school newspaper, had captured the exact moment Ethan solved the problem with an expression of serenity and absolute concentration that contrasted dramatically with Gavin's evident frustration. "This is going straight to the front page," Robert exclaimed excitedly, "and to the school's Instagram." What no one in that auditorium could imagine was that this simple photograph, shared on the school's social media with the hashtag #TheMarketGenius, was about to change Ethan Martinez's life forever. The photo of Ethan solving the math problem with absolute concentration while Gavin struggled beside him went viral within hours. What started as a post on Technical Middle School Number 43's Instagram page was soon shared by thousands, even reaching national media. The Market Genius titled the newspaper El Universal, telling the story of the young boy who divided his time between helping his parents at a fruit stand and solving complex equations with astonishing ease. One morning, as Ethan organized papayas, an elegant woman in a business suit approached the Martinez family stand. "Are you Ethan, the boy in the photo?" she asked with a warm smile. Mr. Henry stepped in protectively. "Who's asking about my son?" The woman handed him a card. "I'm Caroline Rivers, director of the Financial Future Foundation. I'm here to talk to you about an opportunity for Ethan." That afternoon, in the small living room of the Martinez family's apartment in Coyoacán, Caroline explained the reason for her visit. "Our foundation seeks exceptional talent in communities where the educational system often doesn't reach with the necessary intensity. What Ethan did not only demonstrates mathematical aptitude, but also a financial intuition that can't be taught." "And what exactly are you proposing?" asked Mrs. Lucy, serving cinnamon coffee. "A full scholarship to the Autonomous Technological Institute of Mexico in their intensive program in financial mathematics and entrepreneurship. Additionally, a monthly stipend, so Ethan can focus on his studies without financial worries." Silence filled the room. For a family that had struggled their entire lives selling fruits and vegetables, this opportunity seemed like a dream. "What about the family business?" Ethan asked, concerned. "I can't abandon my parents," Caroline smiled. "Part of our program includes mentorship for small family businesses. Your parents would receive advice to optimize and potentially expand their business while you study." 3. Weeks later, Ethan walked through the imposing halls of ITAM, one of Mexico's most prestigious educational institutions. Beside him was Marisol, who had also received a partial scholarship thanks to her outstanding performance in the math competition and Mr. Scott's enthusiastic recommendation. "Can you believe it?" Marisol whispered. "A month ago, we were being ridiculed, and now we're here." Over the next 2 years, Ethan absorbed knowledge like a sponge. Algorithmics, advanced statistics, financial modeling, programming applied to business. Everything fascinated him, but something still bothered him. "These models are brilliant for big corporations," he commented one day to his applied finance. "Professor, but small merchants like my parents and their market peers still lack affordable tools to manage their businesses." The professor, impressed by the observation, encouraged him to develop the idea as a final project. Thus, MarketFin was born, an app designed specifically for small merchants, combining ease of use with powerful financial analysis. With the help of 3 classmates who were excited about the concept, Ethan developed a functional prototype. The app allowed market vendors to track inventory, analyze sales trends by season, optimize prices, and most importantly, access microloans backed by their sales history on the platform. The final presentation of his project attracted not only his professors but also several investors who had been invited to the event. Among them was Alexander Monroe, founder of a successful financial technology company. "Young Martinez, what you've developed could revolutionize Mexico's informal economy," Monroe said after the presentation. "I'd like to discuss the possibility of taking MarketFin to the next level." With an initial investment of 2 million pesos, Ethan officially founded MarketFin as a startup. The first market to implement the app was, of course, the San Juan market, where his parents still sold fruits and vegetables, now in a larger stall thanks to the mentorship they had received. Mrs. Lucy, who had initially been skeptical of technology, soon became the app's biggest advocate. "Before I kept my accounts in notebooks that got wet or lost," she explained to other vendors. "Now with what my son created, I know exactly how much I earn, how much I should invest, and when it's best to buy certain products." In less than a year, MarketFin was implemented in 10 markets across Mexico City. By the second year, it was operating in markets in Guadalajara, Monterrey, and Puebla. Success stories multiplied. Merchants who had operated for decades on the edge of subsistence were now expanding their businesses, hiring help, and in some cases, opening additional stalls. One afternoon, while overseeing the implementation of MarketFin in a market in Toluca, Ethan received an unexpected call. "Ethan Martinez? It's Gavin Montgomery." The silence on the other end of the line mirrored Ethan's surprise. He hadn't spoken to Gavin since that math competition 5 years ago. "My father is interested in investing in your company," Gavin continued, his voice no longer carrying the arrogant tone of the past. "He's been following your career and believes what you're doing could expand internationally." "Your father? The same man who said I'd never leave the fruit stand?" Ethan couldn't resist the comment. "People change, Ethan. I've changed." There was a pause. "What you achieved made me rethink a lot of things. I'm now studying corporate social responsibility, and I'd like to be part of what you're building." That night, in the house, he had bought for his parents in a residential area of Coyoacán, not far from the market where it all began. Ethan gazed at the city from the terrace. "You seem deep in thought," commented Marisol, now his partner in MarketFin and for the past year, something more than a friend. "I'm thinking about how something that seemed like a limitation became our greatest strength," he replied, taking her hand. "Everything I learned at the market, all those taunts, it all brought me here." Expansion magazine had just named Ethan Entrepreneur of the Year, and the World Bank had expressed interest in bringing MarketFin to other Latin American countries as a model of financial inclusion. But for him, the greatest achievement was seeing how the lives of hundreds of merchants like his parents improved tangibly. Every weekend, Ethan still visited his parents' stall at the San Juan market, not as the CEO of a successful startup, but as the son who helped organize fruits and calculated change with astonishing speed. It was his way of staying connected to his roots and remembering that success isn't about escaping where you come from, but transforming your path by using the best of your origins. The market genius, the media still called him, and he smiled, knowing that title perfectly captured his story. He wasn't just a math genius who happened to come from a market, but a genius because he came from the market, having learned lessons no university could teach. 5 years after founding MarketFin, the app was operating in 7 Latin American countries, transforming the lives of over 200,000 small merchants. The model had been studied by prestigious universities like Harvard and MIT as an example of innovation with social impact. One afternoon, Ethan received a special invitation. Technical Middle School No. 43. Plutarco Elias Calles invited him as the keynote speaker for their graduation ceremony. As he stepped onto the same stage where years ago he had solved that math problem that changed his life, Ethan looked at the expectant faces of the students. In the audience, he could see Mr. William Scott, now with more gray hair but the same sharp gaze. His parents, Mr. Henry and Mrs. Lucy, who now managed a network of organic product distribution, and Marisol, his wife of a year, who was expecting their first child. "Many of you know me as the market genius," Ethan began. "But true genius isn't about solving complex equations. It's about finding value where others see limitations. It's about understanding that our origins aren't obstacles to overcome, but foundations on which to build something unique." As he concluded his speech, a student raised her hand. "How did you know you'd succeed when everyone told you you'd never leave the fruit stand?" Ethan paused, a faint smile playing on his lips as he considered the question. The room was silent, every eye fixed on him, waiting for his response. He leaned forward slightly, his voice steady but imbued with a quiet intensity. "Success," he began, "isn't something you know you'll achieve. It's something you decide to pursue, regardless of the odds. When I was working at the fruit stand, I didn't have a roadmap or a guarantee. What I had was a belief that my circumstances didn't define my potential. Every day I told myself that the fruit stand wasn't my destination, it was my starting point." He paused, letting his words sink in. "People told me I'd never leave, that I'd never amount to anything more than a vendor. But I didn't listen to them, not because I was arrogant, but because I knew their limitations weren't mine. I saw the fruit stand as a classroom, not a cage. I learned about supply and demand, about customer relationships, about the value of hard work. Those lessons became the foundation of everything I built afterward." Ethan's gaze swept across the room, meeting the eyes of the students. "The truth is, no one can tell you whether you'll succeed or fail. Not your parents, not your teachers, not the voices in your head. The only thing that matters is what you choose to believe about yourself. If you see your beginnings as a curse, they'll hold you back. But if you see them as a gift, they'll propel you forward." He straightened, his tone softening. "So, to answer your question, I didn't know I'd succeed. I just knew I had to try. And that's the difference between those who dream and those who achieve. It's not about certainty, it's about courage." The room erupted into applause, but Ethan held up a hand, signaling for silence. "One last thing," he said, his voice now a whisper that somehow carried to every corner of the auditorium. "The fruit stand didn't make me who I am. It revealed who I could become. And that's a lesson I hope you'll carry with you. Your past doesn't define you, it prepares you." As the applause swelled again, Ethan stepped back from the podium, his message delivered. The students sat in stunned silence, his words echoing in their minds, a challenge and an invitation all at once. Then, another hand went up, a young man this time, his expression a mix of curiosity and determination. "Mr. Thorne," he began, "you've talked a lot about overcoming your past, but what about the people who helped you along the way? Did you ever feel like you owed them something for your success?" Ethan's smile deepened, and he nodded as if he'd been waiting for this question all along. "That," he said, "is a story for another time." The room buzzed with anticipation, but Ethan had already turned, stepping away from the podium with the quiet confidence of a man who had nothing left to prove. The students watched him go, their minds racing with possibilities, their hearts stirred by the man who had once stood behind a fruit stand and dared to dream of something more.